And we have a few things on the agenda. And before we get to the agenda items, we're going to have the youth and governance read the youth and governance statement. So Gianna, please.
There we go. Hello, we are members of the Racine, I'm a member of the Racine County Youth and Governance Program, and I'll be participating in tonight's meeting. This program serves to empower youth in Racine County by encouraging us to participate in local government. We have agreed to abide by the applicable standards of conduct that would govern any elected county board member. While we are encouraged to participate and are allowed to have a non-binding advisory vote on matters before the committee, all formal action taken by this committee will be based solely on the binding votes made by county board supervisors.
Thank you kindly for that. Just to note that Supervisor Renee Kelly has asked to be excused and Supervisor Varanth will just be a few minutes late. So for the minutes, and I have not heard from Youth and Governance Rep Widener yet. So we may have to put her on excused if she doesn't show up. All right, thank you. There is no public comment. There is no chairman comment. So the first item is approval of the minutes. So it's an actionable item. Do we have a motion from the committee?
So move.
It's been motioned.
Second.
It's been seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. Youth and governance, how do you wish to vote?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, how do you wish to vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. There was no nays, so it has been approved. Next, we have a couple referred item. Both of these are actionable. You'll see report number 2025-31 by County Executive, a reappointment to the Local Emergency Planning Committee. And we'll also see report number 2025-36 by the County Executive making a reappointment to the Local Emergency Planning Committee. If it would be okay with this committee, if you guys do approve both, can we take both of those items up together?
So move.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And just for the record, as this is being recorded and streamed, we have Nick Nogulski. And Nick Nogulski's term of member for the Local Emergency Planning Committee is set to expire September 30th of this year. And this is just a reappointment, and this term will go to September 30th, 2027. The next is Timothy Zusk, same situation, his term expiring September 30th, 2025, and it'll go to September 30th, 2027. So it's been motioned to approve youth and government. How do you wish to vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Committee, all those in favor?
Aye.
And there was no opposed. Thank you. Now we have new business. The first thing on the agenda is we have an overview and update regarding the courts from our Racine County Clerk of the Circuit Court. So Amy Vanderhoff, you are up. Thank you for your willingness to be here. And just for the record of this committee, as we help oversee the policies or different changes that may come about in any of our constitutional offices, we often have them come before this committee to give updates, and this is one of the constitutional offices. So thank you, Amy.
I think that's on. Okay. So she's just passing out a handout, so I'll probably get to this after the PowerPoint. For those of you that don't know me or haven't met me, I'm Amy Vanderhoff, Clerk of Circuit Court. I just put together a little PowerPoint just to kind of give an overview of the Circuit Court and what the Clerk of Circuit Court's office does. So we can go to the next one. Maybe. So the circuit courts are the state's trial courts. In Wisconsin, we have 261 judges total in our 72 counties. They're elected countywide to 6-year terms. And the governor, if there's any vacancies, the governor will appoint in those vacancies. Of the 72 counties, there are 47 judges in Milwaukee County. 26 of the 72 counties have one judge. Some of the smaller counties share one judge. And the court system is composed of 69 circuits total, with 66 circuits serving a single county and 3 circuits serving 2 counties each. Just some information. We can go to the next one. So of the 72 counties, there's 9 judicial districts. Racine County is part of Judicial District 2, which consists of Kenosha, Racine, and Walworth County. Each of the districts share judicial resources. So there's a chief judge and a deputy chief judge, the court reporters, and then there's a district court administrator for each judicial district. And next one. And then just an overview of Racine County. We're the 51st Circuit of Wisconsin, the 2nd Judicial District, as I stated before. We're the 4th largest circuit court in the state, and we have 10 circuit court branches. Next. And then this is just the type of cases that go through the circuit court. If you could just hit, I think criminal should come through. They should populate, maybe. There we go. Just listing some of the criminal charges that we have, the homicide, murders, basically felony and misdemeanor and traffic charges, armed robberies, thefts, drugs, drunk driving, disorderly conduct, and of course our speeding tickets or traffic tickets. And then civil cases, large claim, small claim, name changes, restraining orders, anything that's a civil. And then we have our juvenile cases, children in need of protection and services, delinquencies, guardianships, mental commitments, and termination of parental rights. And then next we have our 10 circuit court branches. So I know it's hard to see with this color I chose. Now that I see it, never using that color again. So when the judges are elected, they're elected to that branch for the term of their basically career while they're elected to that branch. So Judge Laufenberg is branch 1, Judge Eugene Gasherkevich is branch 2, Judge Jessica Lynott is branch 3, Judge Scott Craig is branch 4, Judge Kristen Cafferty is branch 5, Judge David Paulson is branch 6. I guess I made a mistake. Judge Jamie McClendon is branch 7. Judge Faye Flancher is branch 8. I don't know how those got mixed. Judge Robert Repeshak is branch 9 and Judge Timothy Boyle is branch 10. So those numbers will stay with them while they are in those branches. Next one. And then the next one is basically just the rotation of where they are at right now. Wait, these colors are not, I'm never using these again. They looked great on my computer. They do not look good on here. Oh, there we go. Now they're populating. So it just kind of says where each judge is currently. So we have 2 civil courts, 2 traffic and misdemeanor courts. We have 3 felony courts. We have a family court judge, and then we have a family probate court that splits some of those family cases. And then we have 1 juvenile court. And then this is just my office. So the clerk of circuit court is a constitutional officer elected to in each of the 72 counties to serve 4-year terms. I don't know if this is going to populate. And then the county's judges do appoint if there is a vacancy. And then the clerk of court acts as the CIO basically and CFO of the court system. So they're the chief information officer and chief financial officer of the court system. And then next. And then the clerks are the records custodian, jury management, court administration, and court finances. And then as custodian of the record, record keeping for the courts is governed by statute and Wisconsin Supreme Court rule. So it requires clerks maintain records of all documents filed with the courts and keep a record of court proceedings and collect fees, fines, and forfeitures ordered by the court and specified by statute. Clerks must also establish and promote procedures for reasonable access to these records, as well as maintain the confidentiality of records as set forth by statute and court order. On top of the record, we also have to maintain exhibits. So one thing I learned last year is even with flash drives, those have an end of life. So we also have to maintain the life of those. So if those now with the digital age, we have to check the life of those and we have to update those in the exhibit when we're saving exhibits too, when we're storing exhibits. Yeah, that's something I learned last year too. Yeah. So, and then, jury management obviously is, also a responsibility of the clerk of courts. This has been made a little bit easier with the automation, for selecting and notifying jurors. It's actually much more efficient and has improved record keeping for jury management with our software that we use. Clerks work with the director of state courts and the legislature to continue to improve jury management. And we can go on. And court finances, we collect millions of dollars in fees, fines, and forfeitures that are paid through the clerk's office annually. The clerks of circuit court work to meet this fiscal responsibility with accurate, efficient, and effective accounting practices. Financial software designed in accordance with accepted accounting principles assist clerks in efficiently handling this money. And then court administration, this involves pretty much everything else. Includes budgeting and administering the trial court resources, developing effective policies and procedures, and recruiting and maintaining competent staff, which is not always easy. As the local court administrative personnel, clerks of court are at the center of enormous variety of activities and work daily with many different people. Law enforcement, legal community, local, state, and federal agencies, businesses, the general public depend upon the clerk of courts to solve a wide range of problems. Clerks of courts provide an administrative link between the judiciary and county boards and the public. They also work closely with other court staff to ensure that courts run smoothly and efficiently. And then the next one just talks about our justice partners. So we work closely with the DA's office, the state public defender's office, the Bar Association, Human Services, the Child Support Agency, the Racine County Sheriff's Office, the Department of Corrections, and the Department of Justice, and any other agency that contacts us, which I could probably name a ton. And then Office of the Clerk of Courts. I don't know if my handout matches this because I did both of them at 2 different times. 47 full-time employees. We have 8 to 10 part-time and on-call. Those are listed basically for our court attendance and jury attendance because we do have a large, which I'm trying to increase that, a large pool of, most of them are retired, that we use for bailiffs for our juries and for court attendance. So I just wanted to put that in there. And then our annual operating budget typically is around 5.4 to 5.6 million on average. And then income that we bring in for revenues is sometimes between 4.9 to 5.1 million. And then we roughly estimate between 39 to 49,000 cases per year. When you look at how many cases are open per year, that's just our number of cases that are open, but we still have cases that are ongoing from the previous year or cases that are being reopened. So that's why those numbers different. And then the next one, the county comparisons. This one I just wanted to throw in there. Just sort of gives you an overview of some of the other counties. I think Brown is probably more comparable to Racine as far as population wise, but just shows you the number of employees, and the number of employees goes to full-time staff members that we have that are not commissioners. So sort of our full-time members that are actually processing paperwork or in court or doing things. So it kind of shows you where we're at compared to other counties. And then the last one, what's happening in court. So just a little overview. Case filings are still increasing since COVID, so we are on the rise. Our collections were up for 2024, about 3.5% from 2023. We are unfortunately currently hiring. We've had some movement. Are continuing to convert our paper files to electronic format. So we have staff members who, in their downtime, which isn't much, scanning files. Our court-appointed attorneys continue to be an issue, and that goes along with the state public defender's office not being able to appoint attorneys, and us having to either look for an attorney or appoint an attorney on a case when they've been waiting for a significant amount of time. Interpreter costs are still increasing. I have been trying to find ways to save on interpreter costs, and it just doesn't seem to be, it doesn't matter what we do. It just seems that it is, the cases are either, the interpreters are scheduled, the cancellation policy is like a week. Sometimes the cases get canceled like a day before, so we still have to pay the interpreter. Interpreters for certain cases have to appear in person. We try to do Zoom appearances as much as possible, but even some of those costs are increasing for interpreters. So we're still not getting the reimbursement that I would hope for interpreters. I've tried to create a calendar for our clerks to schedule cases so that we are only, and this is essentially for Spanish cases because that's like our highest case load that we require interpreters for. I've created a calendar for scheduling cases, so we're only essentially bringing one interpreter in, because a lot of interpreters will charge like a time block, so they'll charge like a 2-hour time block. So we try to just have those cases, have one interpreter come in for all those cases. But if we're not using, if the clerks aren't using the calendar and like multiple cases get scheduled, then I have to bring 2 or 3 interpreters in on any given day. So they're still getting used to the calendaring because we just started that probably 6 to 8 months ago. So it's still a work in progress. I've taken some feedback from other counties as to what they're doing too to try to save costs. So it's still, we're still working on it. The circuit court funding, we did receive some additional funding from the state for circuit court funding. So I think, I want to say my August payment, usually we get the payment in July, but the state, the director's office held that payment until August, knowing that we were getting that additional funding. So I think my payment for our second payment this year was an additional 200 and some $1,000. So I think that's going to amount to an additional roughly 400 and some $1,000 for Racine County of the $10 million allotted for next year and the year after. And then the other thing is the sound technology upgrades to our jury courtrooms that are desperately needed. This is one thing that I'm going to push hopefully for budget this year. Our jury courtrooms, I don't know if anyone's been in our courtrooms or even have been to some of our judges' investitures, but the feedback that we get from some of the microphones and using the freestanding Polycom carts, which worked great during COVID because it was like a quick fix, and we had these carts that we were able to connect to Zoom, and it was great for remote appearances. But now we need to upgrade for jury trials, because now that we have all this digital discovery and technology, there's one TV, a 55-inch or a 60-inch TV. I think one of our TVs is 60-inch. The rest are 55, if I'm not mistaken, that everybody in the courtroom is looking at this one screen for evidence. And it's really hard for everybody to see that. So we're hoping to upgrade the jury courtrooms, and we can't do them all at the same time. So it's maybe a little each year, to have the video monitors in the jury boxes so that the jury are able to, the information's right there. And then on the counsel tables, and then upgrade the microphones so that they're actually, that the sound doesn't interfere with anything else in the courtroom, so that there's no feedback, there's nothing. And then the technology basically will sort of mirror what's out at the new Youth Development Care Center. And then the handout sort of just kind of talks about our numbers from 2024. In 2024, the number of documents that we processed, over 439,000. Number of hearings that were scheduled, over 42,000. The amount total receipted in 2024 that went through our office was 17.2 million. New filings for 2024 was 30,671. And then this, I think the number of employees, I know it differed from the other one where I had 47. And I think this is wrong. I think this is supposed to say 47. I think one of them I looked at last year and one of them I looked for this year, so. And I don't know which one was what. But I think we're right at 40. Yeah, I think we're right at 44. So I think right now we're at 44. Full-time. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Amy. That was quite a bit. Committee, do you have questions?
No question,
Mhm.
just, could you forward this to us, so that we can have a copy of it, please?
PowerPoint?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Supervisor Preisker.
Thanks, Mrs. Chairman. Thanks, Amy, for coming today. I just, thanks for going through all of that. The finance director gave us this table last year of when we were going through the sales tax discussion and leading up to the budget last year. It lists all the mandated services that the county provides, the expenditures, it's old now, of 2023 versus the 2023 state funding, and then the funding gap. And your area was identified as having about a $4 million funding gap. And that represented about 6.5% of the total funding gap for the whole, for all the departments. What's not included there is the income you receive. So does your roughly 5 million in income essentially cover that gap, or are you usually operating at like a structural deficit for your operating budget?
We are typically, our revenues sort of balance our expenses, but the last few years, I would say probably starting in 2018, we have not, because of
Mhm.
court-appointed attorneys and now the interpreter costs. Because I can tell you, we don't have a staff interpreter now, and we budgeted for, I think, 110,000 for the staff and for our interpreter costs. And I can tell you probably for this year, we're gonna be over 200,000. Now, we didn't fill that staff interpreter position, so we're still gonna be right around probably the same as what the interpreter position would have been. But I think some of that comes from the state funding. So when they were looking at that, there was a deficit with state funding. So with circuit court is a state court, and there
Right.
was a deficit with the state funding. So that's why there was a big push to get more money from the state.
Right, so annualized, it's about 400,000 in additional funding a year. So that would bring it up from the 1.4-ish to about 1.8-ish, so just under 2 million a year. And that's for the next biannual budget, so that'll be for the next 2 years, basically, for
Correct.
sure, or was this just a
It
one-time?
was only 2 years that they approved.
So for the next 2 years going forward?
Yes.
Okay. All that's helpful. I appreciate that. You know, as we go into the budget process, I've only gone through it once so far, so I don't know if you will present to the full county board as part of that process, but you know, when you do, I would just ask you to be prepared for the scenarios that were discussed when we went through the sales tax presentation, which was there were some supervisors that wanted to direct 50% of the sales tax revenue to property tax relief, which if you assume your 6.5% of the deficit would have been like 155,000 in cuts to your department. Or alternatively, 5 million to property tax relief, which would have meant around 130,000 in cuts to your budget. And I guess if that were to happen, or that was the direction the board would want to go, what would that mean in terms of, I guess where would you make the cuts if you had to make them? Like how many people and what differences in services? Yeah, I know. I'm not saying I'm in favor of them. I would just like the full board to know the scenarios and what the consequences of taking certain actions mean. It's easy to say, I mean, everyone's for property tax relief, but I think when people are faced with property tax relief or funding the criminal justice system, yeah, I guess we'll see what they pick.
Yeah, I think a big thing that they're looking at right now too is how long individuals are sitting in custody waiting for
Right.
attorneys to be appointed. So
Right.
I am looking into that right now. I know that, our chief judges are looking into that right now too. So I don't have any numbers right now because I just started to delve into that. But some of the cases that I pulled up, it's longer than I thought it was. So yes.
All right.
So I think,
Yeah, I don't need
Going
all those answers
forward,
today, but
yeah,
yeah.
I think going forward, I think that's a huge thing that definitely will need to be looked at.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Supervisor Verbanth.
I already did that. Thank you very much for the presentation, Amy. And one question I have is the full-time interpreter, when was that cut? Was that cut for 2025? In other words, you had her on staff through 24, or when did that change happen?
She actually put her notice in at the end of 2024. There was some
Okay.
changes made with her position and she decided that she wanted to leave. So,
Okay.
so we've had the position pretty much posted, for the whole year.
Okay.
We had someone that showed some interest and we actually had an interview scheduled and they canceled last minute. Yeah, it was
Like-
literally last minute.
Okay, I was misunderstood. I thought they cut that position entirely.
not cut it.
Okay, they just don't have someone in
They
that
do not,
position.
no, no.
Okay.
I think the interpreters are, as freelance, they're making some pretty good money.
You're doing well.
Yes.
Yeah. So what is the, I guess one thing you can bring when you present the budget too is kind of how much you spent in 2025 with the current interpreters. And if you could get someone back on staff hired, like what's the trade-off? Do you need to be paying the staff person a little bit more? But does that more than cover, because what you've been spending this past year, you kind of have. So
I actually
that's
started looking at that when she left too, so.
okay. That's the only thing I wanted to add, or if you can have for the upcoming budget, such. Thanks.
That was really good. I actually didn't want to open that can of worms because I do recall that I believe all of us supervisors maybe at the time had received communications from who we had hired, who was on staff for as our staff interpreter, and it was in regards to the changing of her status.
Yes.
Yes, and she was trying to fight for telling you how small the pool actually is for interpreters. She was trying to warn and why there was some security in keeping the status as it was, but yeah. And so here we sit, whether it's because of that or not, but here, we don't have an interpreter either way.
Yeah.
Right. Supervisor Trottier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. And Supervisor Varanth and Supervisor Preisker, thank you for asking questions that I had noted here. Appreciate that. One that wasn't touched that keeps coming up again and again and again is we are taking paper and we are putting it electronically, and then we have to store that. I am hearing again and again and again the cost of storage going up, 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 and up. And that's no fault of yours, but because it's a requirement that these are stored and taken out of paper. But my question is what documents need to be stored and the length of storage of those documents. And what can we do for some of what I have heard that it's crazy we're keeping some of these documents that long? Help me.
Well, our records retention is maintained by Supreme Court Rule 72. So we have to keep our records for as long as it states in the Supreme Court, for the Supreme Court rule. Our storage is, we're on the state court system. So everything that we scan in is done through the state. So we're not technically paying for that. The state pays for that.
So as a county, we're not, are we being charged in the back end somehow?
No.
Okay, thank you for
Well,
clarifying.
I mean, some of the money that we probably collect throughout.
Yeah, they're
That's going
getting
to
a,
the director of state courts.
yeah,
The-
they're taking a percentage
Yeah.
of that money
For
to
the-
support that payment,
Correct, to
Okay,
support
right.
the automated system.
the automated
Correct.
system.
Correct.
But it's not directly storage as a county that is being taken up.
Correct.
Okay. But yeah, I know, they're not doing it for free. They're taking a piece of the pie of the fees that you collect.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, each county probably pays some.
That was one, and, you indicated that the additional 400,000 is just for this 2-year term that was agreed upon, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, I wanted to make that clear, and, I did see the requests of upgrades in the jury rooms, okay? I can tell you that is on the county executive's radar, update of many, many buildings and rooms throughout the county. It's just a matter of, okay, where do we want to start?
Yeah.
And what are the costs? So thank you for bringing that up. Other than that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other supervisors or youth and governance? Please.
I was wondering, do you know like how much the sound and technology upgrades for the jury courtrooms will cost?
I do. So my budget request this year was, I believe I want to say it's 5 or 6 courtrooms, and the total for all of, maybe 6 or 7, I'm not sure. The total was 800,000, but each courtroom varies between 70 to 90,000 roughly. Some of them came in at like 83,000, some of them came in a little lower, some of them came in a little higher, like 86,000. So they were all, I had one for each courtroom, so. And it sort of depends on what's already in there already, because we've done some sound upgrades over the years with different things, so they're actually coming tomorrow to look at some other things for me.
Is there any Band-Aids that you can buy on Amazon with all the Bluetooth, speakers and?
That's what I'm looking at for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking at Bluetooth microphones for
Okay.
our jury stuff right now, just because that's an issue right now too.
Makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Youth and governance, do you have any additional question? Just one thing, back in January, I believe, of this year, there was a public warning that went out in Kenosha in regards to some scam going on by the telephone, as if there were court officials saying that they didn't show up for their jury duty. Has that been happening in Racine?
Yes, that
And
has.
how are we handling that?
I have information posted on our website. When we see, we have gotten it reported to us by some parties. I actually had a friend who texted me and said, "Hey, I'm on the phone with someone right now who's telling me that I didn't show up for jury duty. Was I supposed to show up for jury duty?" I said, "No, it's a scam." But we've had people that have gotten thousands of dollars from them. So, but we have it, I think it's actually been posted statewide. I think even the state director has posted it somewhere. But we have it on our website. I think the sheriff has posted it before.
Okay.
And I mean, they've been investigating, but they have people buy gift cards and tell them, okay, if you give me the gift card number, we're not going to send someone to arrest you right now.
What
that's
an
what
odd thing
happens.
that a county government would accept a gift card in lieu of
But
them showing up for.
But they actually
Jury.
sound legit. Somebody,
Wow.
somebody that this just happened to said it was absolutely legit. They knew everything about the person. It was like it almost seemed like it was a legit phone number, and they knew where the person worked. They knew everything about him. So she thought it was
Scary.
yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Maybe if you do have that posting, us as supervisors, if we have social media pages, we can, push that out there that these scams are continually going on in here in Racine County, because I can say, just through my decade serving on here, it's not often you get county calls as supervisors, but one that I do get is oftentimes jury duty, and usually it's how do I get out of it? So can you just speak to that a little bit? Is there some requirement to either get out of jury duty, or, what can we tell our constituents who call in regards to jury duty?
Yeah, we get those calls all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That some people do want to serve, some people don't want to serve. And the legislature, I think about 18 months ago, tried to pass a bill that 70 and over didn't have to serve on a jury, didn't have to, well, that didn't pass, but a lot of people quote that thinking it passed. So we get that a lot. But we try to work with everyone. So if you can't serve, if you get your questionnaire, a lot of people fight us right away with the questionnaire. And we tell them you haven't been summoned yet, so just return the questionnaire. And then if you get summoned and you can't serve that week, we'll work with you. You pick a week that works for you, and we can make it work.
Is there instructions on that of who they reach out to and call? I'm just curious how it ends up on my lap, when they call me, but I would assume in any documentation they get, they do have means of communication
Yeah.
provided to them.
Yep, we have a
Okay.
frequently asked questions
Okay.
that we send out. If they start asking questions when they get the questionnaire, usually we don't send it out with that. But we
Okay.
there's all kinds of information on our website too regarding jury duty.
So that's probably when, or as supervisors, we get it probably at that initial say, I'm going to be on vacation, whatever it may be. So, okay, very helpful for that. And just to be clear, I know Supervisor Preisker, you did ask if when they do a full presentation to the full board during budget time, it actually goes before Finance Committee, which all the board is welcome to. I just wanted to make that clarification. If those that are watching to tune into the Finance Committee during that time, or actually, I don't think it's streamed, right? Will they be streamed, the budget meeting?
I don't know at this point.
Okay, so if somebody is listening to this, or you're just going to watch the schedule and show up out here at the county board, as for now, to guarantee you'll catch those. So I don't have any further questions. Anyone else?
I think, I know the agenda was sent out this week of the times and the departments. I thought that the county board was included in on that and not department heads only. So let me double check that, okay? I'm gonna check it right now before we adjourn here, because that was you brought it up, so I'm gonna check it right now.
That'd be super. Okay, Supervisor Preisker?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I heard you right. So there typically are not presentations to the full, I thought maybe that just happened last year because of the sales tax conversation.
There will be.
Or I'm misremembering this meeting.
That's right. Each department will be brought in and has the opportunity to do a presentation, 5 to 10 minutes, highly recommended. So they will do a presentation. But they don't have to, but they will, each department. And let me pull my
Only at
email.
finance committee or for the full board?
No, not at the full board, only at the finance committee
Okay.
for 3 consecutive days. We have from 5 to 8 on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the middle of October.
Okay.
Not in front of the county board, correct?
Okay.
I didn't realize that was optional for
What-
the departments.
The way the email was
Is
sent.
it presented to you as optional on how during budget time? Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, I think it was. I'll look how it was
It's
worded.
interesting. Okay, it's just changed so much over the years through different leadership. There used to be a mandate that all departments gave a presentation, so I
Here, I'll-
We just know to pay attention. You'll have some questions that we're hoping to get answered during budget time. So, yeah, yeah, that's it. That's truly
We're
it.
a big department. I have to give a presentation.
What's that?
I said, we're a big department. I have to give a presentation.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming and giving us this information. And if we can do some part to help you, I know it looks like you need, you're looking for staff and then also just maybe spreading the message on that public warning and that telephone scam too. So if there's anything else, let us know.
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
send you the PowerPoint and then I'll send you the link to the juror website and the
Yes.
scam.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Amy, so much. Much appreciated. All right, let's move on to the next on the agenda. And we have actually two items, B and C, and we're going to kind of take these up at the same time as well. C is just, it would be allow us if there's any actionables, we can do that in C, but this is a Youth and Governance Annual Report 24-25. So Maria, you are up. And you did get a folder. So that's the color folder that's before you. So we'll be going through that.
Is it on now? Okay, perfect. So I'm sorry I always throw so many documents at you guys, but I want to make sure you have everything in front of you. So on the left-hand side, you should see the annual report. So that's the first thing I can go over. And this is the report for last year's group. So this is for 2024-2025 group 11. And I'm not going to read every single detail, but I can highlight some of the major numbers. So if you go to page 2 under youth recruitment, some of the important points, the second bullet point, we had 32 community members nominate 73 youth, which was actually a pretty large increase from the previous year. For group 10, we had 22 community members nominate 52. And this was due just to more communication with the school districts. I know I had a few of you reach out individually to community members in schools, so that was very helpful. And then in the end, we ended up receiving, I believe, 34 applications. Yep, that's the third bullet point. And we ended up interviewing 30 youth, only because those 4 we didn't interview, I think, didn't sign up for interviews. Otherwise, we would have had 34. And obviously, in the end, we had 10 youth selected, 8 female and 2 male. And then at the end of each program year, we provide a survey that measures both civic engagement and leadership impact. And so they're asked a series of questions they have to answer on a scale. We can go more into detail about that. On page 3, we see that in the area of civic engagement, all of the youth, for the most part, displayed an increase in civic engagement skills. Some of the areas that showed the most growth were awareness of local issues in Racine County, knowledge of Racine County government, and a feeling of connection to Racine County. And then under leadership, again, there was overall a positive impact with the largest growth in the areas of being a resource to people in Racine County, ability to talk knowledgeably. So this is their perception of themselves. Ability to participate in group discussions with adults as well. And we can see all of this broken down in the next page, on page 4. So here you can see all of the questions and you can see the averages. So we have the before section and the after section. So they're the same questions, just they have to answer how they felt before the program and after participating in the program. And so you can see all of the questions, there's an overall increase in the average value. And then we ask all of them, did the youth and governance program create an environment conducive to allowing for youth voice? I won't read all of the comments, but they're all positive. Some youth said, I felt welcomed and praised for my questions. The county board reps always listened to me and made sure to ask if I had comments. A lot of people always mention that they get asked before or after meetings if they have any questions, which is great. And then page 5 is more detailed data under the leadership section. We did have one youth, just so you note, in the after section, it kind of skewed our data a little bit because one youth didn't answer the before section. So just keep that in mind. But overall, again, positive responses to the question on leadership. Did the Youth and Governance program prepare you for future leadership opportunities? So they said, YIG taught me more about collaboration. I'm confident in my public speaking. It enhanced my confidence and ability to collaborate with others. So overall positive. And then the next page is the same data. It's just showing you how many units of change. So how many youth showed no change after the program, 1 unit of change, and 2 units of change. We did have 1 youth. So if you can see, one of the lines didn't add up to the 10 responses. That's because 1 youth for some reason had 2 units of negative change. And sometimes we see that happen if I don't properly check in with the youth. There's some confusion about the before and after section, so we have to keep that in mind. And then page 7, we always ask the question of overall, who do you feel supported you throughout your service, and how exactly did they support you? So we have a lot of people in this room actually mentioned here, a lot of supervisors, a lot of mentors that provided a lot of support, as well as UW Extension. And then the very last section is an overall report on their service project. So as most of you know at this point, they decided to create a video around professionalism tips. And they worked with Racine Video Production, which is a part of Racine Unified, and that was through a grant they had to work with youth in the community. And they also worked closely with Karen Goodwin from the Summer Youth Employment Program in the county. So that was great that they found a way to contribute to a department within the county. And then this video is actually going to live on. We're still actually working on adding captions to it so that I, as the positive youth development educator, can use this out in the community. And then the last section is just overall program recommendations from the youth themselves. Someone said, I wish I could have known more about what each committee specifically does. Sometimes I wish I could have known that, time management is needed. That's when we get a lot. And I wish I had more background on what my committee did so I could understand some of the new things happening on my committee. So I feel like some of this we are trying to do a little better with overall explaining the functions of each committee during orientation, but I think that's something that everyone also learns as we go. So it's a little hard. But yeah, any questions about the annual report?
I'll just make a comment about that. And sometimes when we often see this, and just to let the committee know, realize that their orientation, it is so new and it's their first time sitting in a governmental space. And so we even decided this year to scale back a little bit on the presentation because it can be very overwhelming and they're only absorbing maybe a third, maybe at best, of the information. So there is talk on how do we continue building that knowledge base, not only learn as you go, but it's kind of isolated, and maybe Gianna can kind of speak to it as well, because I'm sure she probably felt a certain way during orientation and where you sit today. Can you contribute somehow to that?
Yeah, when I came in for orientation, I was definitely very nervous because it was like my first time like in the like governmental building, and it was definitely very intimidating. So I think maybe it would have been a little bit helpful to meet for like the first time in a more informal environment. Um, and maybe like meet the board, I don't know. Um, and just so it's not as intimidating, I guess. I don't know. That's just how I feel. But yeah.
That's a really interesting feedback because I can see how it can be perceived as being like a formal setting. And, maybe that's something that we can chew on too, because we're trying to give them all the ropes, giving them terminology, giving them really the overview of what it is they're getting into. And I'm wondering if more of a casual setting to get to know their mentors first, and then, then by the time they come in this formal space, that's really great feedback. I'm just thinking, how do we?
Yeah, I did have the thought of maybe doing something virtually, just even something short before that meeting, if that's the only way we can get people together. But yeah, I've learned that I kind of have to repeat a lot of this information in different spaces. So also the bus tour has helped as another space to like repeat more of that information, but we also only have so much time during that
For
day.
sure.
So yeah.
Great. Any comments on the annual report? Supervisor Preisker?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. A couple things. I appreciate the comment, Gianna, and I will talk with you as your mentor. I'm a slacker on that regard. So don't leave right away tonight. I don't know what the orientation process is, but I can definitely appreciate how it'd be really intimidating to walk into these formal meetings where we're following Robert's rules. And maybe that's, I actually got questioned from that from a colleague elected official about a meeting that I was in earlier this week, and they didn't even understand the process of what was happening in the voting process, and said you know we should do more training on Robert's Rules of Order and how things happen. So I don't know if youth and governance would want that, but maybe just some sort of training or overview on Robert's Rules of Order would be helpful, just so they're not so intimidated by not only the meetings that we have, but that would be a useful skill, I think, to go on to whatever they do, because almost every board, whether it's a government meeting or any entity, tends to follow Robert's Rules of Order. So that might be a good skill, and they would then have confidence, how you run a meeting and how you operate as a member of a body in that setting. Um, Related to that, or the next thing, some of the recommendations for improvement were that people didn't seem to know about the committee. So I wonder if in the description that we give, I don't know how big it is, but maybe we could just give a couple examples of agenda items that committee might typically cover in a year. So for example, the Economic Development Committee, all we seem to talk about are approving cell towers and solar panel farms. So if we could maybe mention that, right? Like if you're interested in that, or approving, taking down and rebuilding a boathouse by one of the lakes, so that they have some idea of what the topics might be, because the way that they're listed, they may not really know what the substance of what we're talking about is. And there was another thing, but it escapes me. So thank you.
Thank you for that information. Just a note, so Maria does do a good job out of the extension office. When the youth get nominated, it's such a simple nomination form. They are then mailed out an application. And they do receive, because it is asked during their application, what committees would they rank, if you recall. And there is a briefing of what those committee, I'm seeing it in our handbook too. So they are provided that. Once they do get selected, they do get a example of of an agenda. However, it's not, so this youth, maybe that they wrote this statement, it would have been during the application. So, I'm not sure. I mean, that's some good information, maybe, but I'm afraid they wouldn't even understand an agenda at that point, because it's during the application process when they do need to decide. And also, it's not necessary, not necessarily that they get their selection, unfortunately. It's just, how it's ranked and how it's scored. But I saw Supervisor Hoffman, maybe, were you wanting to speak or no? Oh, no, okay, Supervisor Trotter.
Thank you. Thanks, Maria. This is good update. Just a couple of procedural things that I'm trying to understand here. Due to the statement, I wish I knew more about each committee specifically does, so I can have a better pick what committees to serve on. That's the first one. How many applicants do we get?
So it ranges, I think in the past 2 years, we've had between 50 and 70 something.
You know, I know it would be time consuming, but when we get the 50, 60 applicants, is there any way to get them all together and have committee members come in and explain to them? I think, you know, we do this, everything is internet. Okay, and I'm old school, where if you're facing somebody and you have the ability to explain, you know, what does the finance committee do? What decisions do they make? What does the building and grounds or Ed Loop, what do they do? Again, I'm wondering, of the 50, 60 applicants that we end up getting 10, or excuse me, 12, how many of them read that ahead of time?
Yeah.
And how
actually,
many,
50, 60 is nominated, but then it's actually
Right.
like more like 30 who apply.
right, so it's just a suggestion. I don't know if we could coordinate that. I'd be more than happy to attend. I'm sure I could talk to other county board supervisors come when we do this next year. Should those that sit on this committee get reelected or run, but it'd be something that I think we should consider when we get the 30 together to do a presentation at that time. Then they will have a better idea of what committees. And I know it's explained, but I'm just wondering how many read it. If you could get them all in the room, then you would get the seriousness of what committees they really want.
Yeah.
So that's my comment.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think logistically that it probably wouldn't work because if you think about our process, and I'm just going to brief it once again, but I think there is a solution, and I want to speak to even what Supervisor Preisker said. But because an adult, whomever the adult would be, submits a nomination, it then goes to UW Extension. They submit an application. In that application is where it's questioned which committee. And you don't know, you go from 70 to only 30 who actually fill that out. And so how do you know which 30 out of the 70 are going to take heed and actually fill out the application after they get nominated? And at that time of the application is when they make a selection of which committee and rank them in order. But I think there's a solution here. And we talked about it, and I hope you get to this, Maria, if you know we have time here, is as we were awarded, we were part of a grant. And I remember during being part of that process to hopefully get the grant, is that it would be great if through this grant process or the youth in governance created these videos. And these videos could be available on the UW extension. So if this year's youth and governance group, you know, could get behind supporting putting together a step-by-step, and whether it be the nomination, whether it be probably Gianna and Scout would be able to be part of a video of what is youth and governance on the government services committee, and they're accessible at any point. So in the nomination process, in the application process, they could access these videos that would talk very specifically about what each committee is, and before they would fill out the application. And then it would also talk about the Robert's Rules of Order or whatever it may be. So it'd be fantastic because that could be timeless to a certain degree. Our government is structured pretty much foundationally the same, just the topics change. And just to speak to that Robert's Rules, as that is something that has come up since I've sat here.
It's in here.
Yeah. And we give it out, we go over it the first time, they get together. And even as new freshly supervisors, if you've never been in that setting, it is sometimes hard. But the one thing we do, so maybe here could be something that it would have to be voted on by this committee, but as Michael Lansdorf has given a presentation a couple years for this committee specifically to say, what is it that is within our purview that we can do as the 5 constitutional offices, and then whatever is within them is under us, under this government services committee. Michael Lansdorf does a phenomenal job. But maybe what would behoove government services well beyond our time here is that we have at the very first meeting of the new government services, so within the year, because we have the elections, that Michael Lansdorf does the presentation of this committee's purview. And with that comes then, addressing some of the Roberts Rules of Order, because this is open to the county board as well, and it could be in the county board chambers. But, there's something similar that has happened on city government, on public safety and licensing, because there's a lot of mandates. And we are overseeing constitutional office, a little different than any other of our standing committees. And we honestly don't have much. We can't tell Amy truly what to do because she has mandated services. So what is it that we do? And so public safety and licensing oversees, liquor license, blah, blah, blah. But we have at the very first meeting to go over the laws and regulations. So why not have that at the very first meeting of government services and have Michael Lansdorf go through the Roberts Rules of Order as well? Youth and governance can be welcome. John does a phenomenal job out of the department recording this, and it also could be something that's part of our records. So if the county supervisors couldn't attend, or the youth and governance. So that's just my thought on taking what you say, because they are both very valid positions, and even what the youth and governance contributed as well. Gianna. Okay, Supervisor Peisker.
Madam Chairman, I like the idea of having a orientation or overview of the Roberts Rules of Order by Attorney Lansdorf as the start of each session. I think that would be a great idea for any new supervisors that may have been elected, and for new youth and government officials, just to go through the process and hear him explain it and be able to ask questions if they have questions about how it works. Because if you haven't been through it before, it's not really a hard process. It's kind of a rigid process, and you do need to know it's helpful to know how it works and what you're doing to understand what's happening in the meetings. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So maybe what I'll do, because that would be an actionable item, I'll put it on our next agenda, and, I'll talk with Michael Lansdorf about it. But one thing we should probably note is timing, because what is the date, the month, Gianna, Maria, when the youth and governance first sit on the very first committee meeting?
Yeah, I have the calendar, I think, on the right-hand side, all the way at
Okay.
the end. But they start attending meetings, I believe, after orientation, which takes place in April.
So that does fit around when election time occurs. So, okay, we will keep that in mind. So if that's in April, and probably by the time the swear in, so maybe May, whatever the first Thursday in May is, would be, ask if that would work for the Corporation Council. Okay, awesome. Thank you for those suggestions. Hopefully that's helpful to Maria, and hopefully to Gianna, with some ideas that the Youth and Governance Project may be able to fit with some of those needs hearing this annual report. Any other discussions on the annual report? Okay, Maria, I know you had a couple other things for us.
Yeah, so I did want to share more going along with the service project. This page is just an overview of everyone we selected for this year. I do have an outline of all of the service project meetings we have planned. So every year we like to invite any supervisor to attend, and we have had a few people jump into random meetings. So you're more than welcome to attend and kind of hear their ideas. The next meeting we have in person is next week, Wednesday, September 10th at the Marina. And so we invited all mentors, and actually we had our first service project meeting last week. And I can let Gianna share a little bit about that if you'd like, but they already started with ideas, and they have some amazing ideas already, and they actually want to pitch that to the mentors next week. So we're kind of doing a presentation that's going to be completely led by them in order to receive feedback about that. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about the idea so far.
I mean, we're kind of talking about creating a video to help out people with more knowledge about government, things like that. I don't know, but we'll talk more about it next week. So yeah.
That's fantastic. It kind of goes with the theme of what we're talking about this evening a little bit. Maybe this is a little more granular, but I will tell you, you are a little bit ahead of the last year's youth and governance. It took a while for them to even come up with ideas on what their project was going to be. So kudos to you, Gianna, and your group. So that's really good to know. And I will announce at the county board in regards to this, I do encourage this committee to show up because it is a tour of our marina, and with what's going on with the phase project, it would be a good thing for us to just get an update on that. So along with our youth. And there's usually food.
Yes, there
So-
will be pizza.
All right, perfect. Is there anything else in regards to that?
Yes. So as you mentioned, we did receive the Baldwin grant, which is exciting. And so the whole purpose behind that was to try to provide more structure to the service project component of their service. And so we are kind of starting out the process of selecting who out of all of the group is going to be selected for internships. And so there's 2 research interns, 2 video interns, and then 6 what we call the local internships. And so the way this is going to work, there's the research and video interns are going to start ideally by next month, so in October. And so the research intern actually receives a research certificate from UW-Madison. So that's the first job description that I provided. And this was created by the Baldwin Grant team through UW Extension. So whoever gets elected is going to meet with a UW-Madison professor. It's a series of about 6 to 8 meetings. And they, like I said, receive a certificate. They get to attend a conference in November that's like all paid for. The goal ultimately is to attend the Wisconsin Counties Association legislative conference. And so that will also be paid for. And the goal is for them to kind of present their research that day. And so the hope is that they get to choose a topic related to Racine County. And so the purpose or the role of the intern is to work alongside the rest of the youth and governance peers to kind of compile this research. So as I mentioned, the youth already started kind of trying to wrap their brains around all of this, and they mentioned that it would be great to kind of like you're saying, compile some data from the different committees, from different stakeholders, and learn more about what the needs are in Racine County and maybe showcase that in a video. So there's a lot of different ideas floating around that topic. And then the video intern also gets to meet with a professional. They get guidance and ultimately, again, work with the rest of the team on the video. So each intern receives $1,000 stipend at the end. The only thing is that obviously we only have 4 spots. So now we have to figure out who out of the 10, 12 youth are going to get selected. So I did create an initial form that I got feedback from the rest of the Baldwin team from. And these are just questions asking why are they interested in the internship? How are they going to collaborate with the rest of the team? And then the hope is for me, once they apply or fill out this form, I will meet with them one-on-one because it's also important for them to understand they're going to have to balance their committee meetings, the service project, and this internship. So that's a lot. And we're trying to be very straightforward about that so they understand the commitment. So far, we have 3 people who filled out the form and it's due on Monday. So, but I do know that there were more people interested who haven't submitted it yet. So a question I had is if anyone from this committee is interested in reviewing some of those responses. I also know that we already have this whole other recruitment process that you guys all went through already. So I don't want to put that burden on you of having to read through applications again. But if you're wanting to or interested in reading them, I can share them. Otherwise, I and my team with UW-Madison can kind of make that decision on who gets selected if we have more than 4 who are interested.
So my first initial response to that, a few. First, let me ask this question. Is this open up to the 10 that were selected and the 2 alternates?
Yes, so it's open to those 12, and then as you might remember, we invited additional youth.
Perfect.
So only 2 additional youth kind of took us up on that from the people who applied. So it's around, if we don't get that other youth, it's only 14.
14. Okay, nope, that's good to know. And that should be something that this committee notes, because remember, we decided last year, and this is kind of the pilot, those who weren't selected, we wanted to still open it up to be part of the youth and governance process. And the part of the fear was, oh, how are we going to have room for an additional 30 people on the bus tours or in spaces and rooms? Only 2 people took up on that offer. So let's not get that, that kind of, we're exaggerant thoughts when we move forward to maintain it next year when it's when we solidify, hopefully, that we continue to offer these youth that aren't selected. Are these paid positions?
Yes, so they get $1,000 at the end.
Okay. And second of all, I would think it would be fair. However, and I'm just putting it out there, my initial thoughts is this committee, we did select the youth and governance. It was something we voted on. They were by our score process. I'm just wondering if it should be something that we're part of if it exceeds the 4. If we should do like a short interview, taking those applications and almost duplicating that. That's my initial response. I just think as we have selected this group, we're a little familiar with it, with the youth and governance. Not to say I'm wanting to put more on us, but I feel like we have a responsibility over this youth and governance. So, Supervisor Preisker?
Thank you. Maybe I wasn't taking notes fast enough. So there are 4 openings.
Yes, so there's 4 right now, but there will be 6 more in January with the local internships. And so those interns are meant to kind of implement a project that came as a result of the research.
And it's 4 within Racine County, or there's 4 for the 4 counties
4 in
participating?
Racine.
Okay.
So there might
So
be.
we're
the
not competing
possibility-
against Burnett, Dane, and Iron County?
No,
Okay.
but because those are rural counties, apart from Dane, they may have some struggles with recruiting youth, actually.
Okay.
So we may have the opportunity of getting some of those internships that aren't used by the other counties, but that's not guaranteed. So we're only guaranteed 4.
Okay, we're guaranteed 4. Okay.
Okay, and just maybe another thing to keep in mind. So come January, out of the 14, we might not have 6 who are interested. And so, what would we then do to be able to fulfill those 6 slots? Because we want this grant to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, during our meeting last week, I presented this to everyone, so they're aware that those are coming. And so I told them to keep in mind their schedules if like it doesn't work right now, but later on is better. So I would hope that they keep that in mind. I could have added those other internships to this application, but I just didn't. We don't even have the job description for that yet.
Yeah.
So
And does it have to be different youth than the 4 that are?
I don't think so. I don't think that's a requirement. No.
So the one thing I found, and I'm hoping, Gianna, that this is going to be an exception for this youth and governance group, is that we select these individuals, they're rated, and it's those who get the highest score. And what typically has happened, those high scores come by the individuals who are so involved. And then we tend to see attendance, like last year was horrible. The attendance was horrible for our youth, and because they're just too committed, because they're so involved, and that tended to impress those who are scoring them. But then we get individuals who just are not making their meetings. And so this is telling them not only make your meetings, but now here's another make your meetings be part of the Youth and Governance Project, which there was some youth who weren't part of it last year, but they were part of the group, but they weren't showing up for it. But it's saying now you're going to have another project and obligation. And our pool is very small if there's this many youth. So something we need to keep in mind, and it be, whether the UW Extension has decided, what about those youth who were not selected? Can we open that up, these positions up to those youth as well?
Yeah, I think that would be up to us. I don't think because even there's some counties that decided to not use their youth and governance program and just recruit out in the community. But because we already had such a well-established program, it just made sense that they're already doing a service project to have it coincide with the grant.
That's really interesting. And I'm wondering if this is something we would want to act on now, especially the 6th. So I know those who have been through this interview process that are sitting here, we are so royally impressed by the youth that we interview. I mean, it's very, very difficult. And a couple times I know my heart was like, oh, I really was hoping so-and-so would get through, or they're all of them to get through. That's why we opened up this year to allow them, the ones who weren't selected, be part of the Youth and Governance Project. But we did say this time during the interview, is we're trying to find ways. You guys are so eager to be part of our local government. We hate to just that go away. Maybe this be something, of communication that, hey, just pay attention to your emails, because there is this. And, if we would want to panel out and do another interview process for these interns, and open it up not to only the ones who already been the stars that have been selected, but allow the opportunity for those who haven't been selected. So that's my initial thought. I've been through too many of these, so I might be a little more opinionated, on this. So
No, you're right.
yeah. Do you have any comments and thoughts? Because you've heard Maria spiel to the Youth and Governance. What are you thinking?
I mean, I think it would be great to, yeah, like open up the internship to the people who weren't selected, because like, although I am interested in it, like, I think they should have a fair opportunity as well. Um, just because like they had an interest in government. And I think that especially I don't know obviously the full description of the 6 internships that are offered in January, but they're working, to my understanding, they're working more on the service project. I think that would be a great opportunity to bring in the youth that weren't selected. I think it would be an easier like integration for them. And then they could handle working like deeper on the service project. So
That's good. No, thank you for that. That's very helpful for us to hear. What Supervisor Preisker?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I have concerns, especially since the youth and governance from prior years stated time management is a concern to begin with, about putting too much on this small group of people. They're already overachievers and involved in a lot of stuff in their school already. We're asking a lot of them to be part of the youth and governance program, attending meetings and working on projects. I worry that we'll fill the positions with the people that we have. But so I don't want us to miss out on the opportunity to get these internships. So I do wonder if I also worry about the deadline that's on Monday.
Yeah.
We don't have very much time to react. So I don't know if I know the answer, but I'd be open to opening it up. And if this is going to be an annual thing, maybe we could have a better process for next year. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's something we do as other county, even if we have a good youth and governance program, that we open up more countywide. Maybe the people in youth and governance don't even have the time to do this at all. Like maybe it is something better for someone that's not doing youth and governance. As much as I love the candidates, and
this is a 2-year grant, just so you know.
Yes.
So
that was my next question is, do we want to bring up the internships from the beginning once we start this next recruitment process, to your point, or do we do we wait and then introduce it? I think ideally we would want to let them know of that commitment from the beginning. But I think at this point, I mean, the deadline for September 8th is flexible, and I let them know if they need more time, that's fine. Because I think it was just 3 questions at most, and it's 1 paragraph responses. But they can get more time, especially because the start time isn't until mid-October. But I think what I'm struggling with is trying to figure out if we invite additional people, are we going, I think it would be in some ways easy to integrate them, but if the group is already working on all of these ideas, we would have to catch them up. So do we open it up now and let people know about the 6 internships coming up so they start attending our service project meetings now? Or do we wait until later in the year, but then we would have to catch them up? So that's my worry when thinking through all of this.
Yeah, I think, this is really good. This is what we try to teach in the universities and at school when we try to talk about group project. And the first part of this grant prior to January is really doing that research. And part of research is reporting. So, how important is that? And when it comes to January, whoever comes up, whether they were part of that research process, they should be able to take that research, interpret it, and then be able to roll it out. So not necessarily part of the planning and research, because true research comes again with proper reporting mechanisms and thoroughness. So I think, and Supervisor Trotter, I see your light was on, so I don't want to hog here, but I want to say, I think we just have to roll with what your momentum is right now with working from our youth and governance for these 4 positions, but we have time for the January. And I think the quickest and easiest way to respond this year is to reach out to the 30-some that had applied, because you have all access to them. You have their emails already. They already had submitted interest, and they had went through our process to want to be selected, to serve terms, to be part of local government process, to open these 6 positions up. Go ahead and open up to the full youth and governance have been selected. I am right there with you, Supervisor Preisker, about, it might be a lot that we're asking from them, but we have till January, as you stated. I mean, that'll be right now. However, it gives us some time. You can open up that pool, and it's a lot bigger of a pool, and there's people who weren't selected. And maybe we should have these applications then for review. Maybe this committee can help you review those and whittle that down. Supervisor Trotter.
I don't want to reiterate what the 2 supervisors just said, but I concur. Our pool is so small right now, and we need to open up the pool of individuals. Again, I also am concerned about the existing 10 individuals plus the 2 backups being overwhelmed with what they currently have to accomplish. Reading through the job descriptions, this is big stuff. That's a big commitment. Add that on. I love the idea. So let's open up the pool would be my suggestion. And let's get prepared for January when the next round would open up. Yeah, like we've concurred. And this is what's good about government. We're sitting here discussing ways to improve the proposed. Not I want you to change everything, just let's improve those types of things. And I'm happy with the comments that were made, and I concur with them. Thank you.
That very helpful. Any other supervisors? Youth and governance? Anything else? I hope that gives you direction. Maria, if it fits in your schedule, can we put you on next month's agenda? Give us an update, and we'll put it as, so this is for, sorry, the clerk's office over there. If we can have this on next month's agenda and allow for an actionable, so maybe to act upon the Baldwin grant, or the internship for the Baldwin grant.
Yeah,
Is that fair?
that's perfect.
Okay,
Yeah,
does that
this
help
is-
you at
this
least
is
to
good
move forward?
feedback too for the
Okay.
rest of the team, because I'm not in charge of coming up with the job descriptions, and I think I had given them that feedback of they're already doing a lot, and it feels like this is a lot to add. But their goal was to not make it harder on
Okay.
us and try to provide more structure to the program. So they are very flexible and they would love to hear this feedback.
That's great. And you know, it almost gives me a bit of relief because I have a lot of guilt that I feel when we're interviewing these youth, knowing that only a few are going to be selected and they are so eager to just want to be part of this, to be able to say, hey, if not, there is this opportunity to be part of this internship and it's paid.
Yeah.
And right now, Gianna is not getting paid for being on here. So it gives some hope. And also opening it up to those who've been selected and let them, you know, realize what time management is all about. So did you want to go over some of these other dates with us?
Yeah, we can briefly go over them. This is for, so the next recruitment season, which I know it feels like we just finished the past one.
Yeah.
So these are just similar dates from last year. The only thing is that every year I've noticed that applications aren't coming in until right before winter break starts. So I did make the date for nominations to be due Friday, December 19th. So that way community members have more time to actually submit those, and then students will have more time to actually send in their formal application. So the deadline for applications would be January 16th, with then interviews being scheduled for February 18th, which gives us about a month to look through applications and score them, if you guys think that's fair. And then we usually have the second day added if needed. I don't think we've used, no, we did use that this past year, I think. Did we?
We did. didn't
I
we?
think so.
We did have, because we had somebody who was traveling.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so we had to do a virtual. The one thing I want this committee this year to recognize, this is an election year, and know that these dates are gonna fall probably during around primary time, and if any of those who are running. So, you know, it is kind of a little harder this year. We don't have too much flexibility because it is better off that the outgoing supervisors are part of this, because the new coming supervisors don't quite understand it. So we do have to kind of keep these dates before the election. So another thing one thing I would like, and it would probably be an actionable item by this committee, I believe that we really, as the youth in governance who have been selected, they are ambassadors of this program. The one thing that I think that I've been seeing this waning is that they're not doing a good job within their schools advocating for this come nomination time. I would love that to be mandated in a sense, where they have to help be ambassadors at their school and come up with ways with how they're going to do that. Whether, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be the person saying what they have to do. I've shown up at schools and spoke, but I think them as the selected youth, there is a level of responsibility for advocating and to sharing what this program is about. And it truly highlights them as a superstar. I think it is, they should recognize what an honor and also how special they are, because this is a very competitive process. And there's only 10 of them who were selected, well, 12 with the alternates, selected throughout all of Racine County. And their school happens to have some superstars in there. So like yourself, but yeah, so if maybe we can bring up in May, I would love to see in, you know, not only in the manual, but also in the application process where we could update that if the committee, being that it'd be voted upon, you know, I'm just throwing it out there that I would love that to be part of a requirement on the youth. Because sometimes, as you said, last year we had some good nominations. Sometimes we don't get that level of nominations, and we should. And
Yeah, and I think something as simple as them just setting up a meeting with their principal, I think that went a long way last year with one of the youth who did that, so.
yeah, so we can give them suggestions on how, but how do you feel with that being a requirement that would be on the youth and governance? God bless you. Bless you.
I definitely think it would be beneficial, especially just to get the word out and so that, again, more people have access to such a wonderful opportunity. I definitely think, you know, um, counselors do a really good job at like reaching out to students. Like I know that's how I found out about the program through my counselor. But yeah, I think it's totally different coming from someone who's gone through the program. So I mean maybe I don't know if like any of the other youth would want to do that, but like, making a short presentation about um what youth and governance is and presenting that, either to couple classes that have relations to like government, like English classes, I'm assuming. But something like that, just to bring the opportunity to more people.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Good. Well, thank you for that feedback. I didn't want to make sure I'm just being like this adult, just take this weight and I'm gonna do it. I see a couple. Did you want to speak,
No,
Supervisor
no, I'm
Trotty?
good, I'm sorry.
You want to speak? No?
I'm good.
You're good? Maria, what can we help you with? Does the committee looking over the schedule, do you see any red flags? We typically just give her our blessing with it. So if you guys don't see anything, if we can, it's not necessarily a vote, but give our blessing.
I think too, deciding if we want to just stick with the virtual, I just kind of assumed we wanted to stick with that, but if we want to change that, we could do that.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to tell you, committee, it was wonderful having the kids before us and looking at all their little nervous knees knocking and everything. And there's something powerful about giving them experience of real life interviews. But I will tell you, we did have to do that over a couple days because there's timing of them transitioning out of this space. So it takes virtual, you just click and then boop, they're there. But there is something powerful about it. So, okay, that would be something we should probably decide now what we would want to do. Do we want to bring that back in person or do we want to keep it virtual this year? Thoughts? Yes.
Madam Chairman, I've only experienced the last time, and it was virtual. I thought that we did a good job with our own time management, really keeping the time slots on time and budgeting enough time between slots so that we can do our scoring
Right.
to get everything done. I also think that it's an important skill for people to learn good interview skills, and in person does help, but I think to make it more efficient, we also have the wild cards of, we have no idea what the weather's gonna be like then, and
Yeah.
what other things people have going on. I think it's a pretty efficient way to do it, even though I think it's not as good as in person.
Yeah, you're right. You guys agree? Yeah, we did have a crazy weather storm one year. Crazy.
I like the comments, but earlier I made a comment about in person. I prefer to be in person.
What about in person for the internships interviews?
Well, as a compromise, that would be
Yeah.
somewhat acceptable, but no, really, I
Yeah.
do believe skills are developed when you're with somebody face to face.
Mhm.
And I believe this is a good test of individuals being in front of us. I know the time can get long. I know the weather can get ugly, but I'm gonna be outvoted, I can see, okay? Which is fine. I mean, and it worked well. It really worked well, okay? And I think that's the second time, or that's the second time I've done it with
Virtual.
virtual.
Yeah.
I think the first time we did it over
Offsite.
off-site,
Yeah,
and that was quite an experience due to the weather.
yeah,
But if we're gonna take a general consensus,
we will.
I would like, I will make it clear, I would like it in person.
So, that's fair.
Are we voting?
I think we may need to. Supervisor Varan.
I was just gonna say, I kind of have mixed feelings. I mean, I think the virtual is probably more efficient. And there's some pros to that, but I think the in-person could be very good too, but it's also the intimidation factor can be tough for the applicants. So I don't know if it makes a difference if we should be thinking about, you know, they're more used to, I think, the virtual world for the applicants, and it might be less intimidating for them. And I don't know if that would make them perform better in that respect, or is it better to have them in person? You know, you might have a great person. Yeah, it can go either way. So it's, but that's my thought on it.
No, there's a lot. We sometimes get done at 11 o'clock at night. 11, so just know that. But this would have to, if we go in person, it would be broken down into 2 days. There's no way to do it in person all in one night. So I am curious of Gianna's thoughts. Like, what if you were required to be in person?
I definitely have mixed feelings as well. Obviously, I don't want to do an in-person interview, but also, yes, like it would build very important skills, and I do think that like an in-person interview would help prepare like high school students for future job interviews. And again, like I hate to admit that, but yes. But then also, obviously, that time of year, I think it's in February.
Yeah.
It is a busy time of year for high schoolers. And so I do know, like for me, it's like a 25-minute drive to get here. So it like depending on, because I'm from Burlington, so depending on like where they live in the county, it could be more of a commitment. But I think that maybe you could, just an idea would be to offer both in person and virtual. So one day be virtual, one day be in person.
Good.
So that, you know, you can like encourage that people come in for the in person, but if people can't make it or whatever, then it can be virtual.
I like how you're problem solving here, hearing that we're in a dilemma. I will tell you, because I've been through, I think, 8+ years, maybe in person, and they take a little bit longer because we're reading body language. And so we're now talking, we're trying to soothe them sometimes, you know, as adults, we're trying to soothe them, and we're talking a little bit more. And if you remember last year, we were doing interviews at 9 o'clock at night, and we kept having some kids came in later. We agreed that they could be part of that group. We've had groups in years past in person who had to sit out there for over a half hour plus, and they had schoolwork they still had to do. So it's different if you're waiting at home, you're able to do some schoolwork because we're a half hour late behind schedule. But you're right, you know, to have them here in person, it gives us a better feel for who they are. Oh boy, what are we gonna do? Go ahead, Supervisor Preisker.
Thank you, Chair, Madam Chairman. So I am not opposed to the in-person interviews. I, like Gianna, also live in Burlington, and it's at least a 25 or 30-minute commitment each way for me to get here. And I'm open to the in-person as long as we keep very, very strict time constraints. I have no appetite to come here with open-ended, you know, giving people more time for discussion and giving other people less time for open-ended discussion, I think is unfair. I think we need to keep it all to very tight time constraints, including time for us to do our scoring. I want to get done with it in a reasonable amount of time and give everyone the same experience. So that would be my comment on it. Is I'll do it in person, but I want to run it as tight as we did virtually.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Just know whatever we decide, this committee's committed to. And if it's 2 days, know this, if it's 2 days, you have to commit to both. You cannot just vote one day, not the other. You have to actually be present for both these days here.
And that's happened.
It has happened because we're not getting proper scoring and proper people interviewing. You know, if you're scoring their sheets, you also score them in person. So it is one of our biggest commitments as a government service committee member. So think about that. Can we be both available on the 18th, especially if you're running an election, right? So 18th and 19th. The one thing that I love how you're problem solving. I'm just afraid if we offer both, everybody's going to choose virtual, especially as a youth, right? But we have made exceptions. I don't know. What do we do? What do hey, this is what where the chair can sit committee. What do you guys choose to do? Yeah.
I mean, if I could just add,
Yeah.
if I remember right, during last year's process, I was unable to make the second one live, but because it was virtual and recorded, I was still able to watch it and do my scoring
Yeah.
and turn it in,
Yeah.
so that we weren't having different scoring and processes for different candidates.
Ooh, that brings another option. It could be we require the youth in person, but it's recorded to allow the supervisors who don't have the ability to be here to also to be virtual. I don't know. Is that a little unfair? The supervisors can be virtual, but the students can't? I don't know. It's not fair? I don't know. We do need consistent voting, and we've had that problem trying to, yeah. Oh my goodness. Maria, what's your thoughts? Because this is a commitment by you as well.
I also see both sides. I think if I put on like my PYD educator hat, I do think there's a lot of value to having it in person, but also thinking like in the real world now, I think all of the jobs I've applied for have had an initial like virtual interview and then in person. Um, I think I'm leaning towards in person because I want to get to experience that. I haven't experienced it. Um, but I do also think about just we will need to be inclusive. So we will have to have a spot in the application that if, they need some form of accommodation due to a disability, we may have to offer the virtual option for that reason. But I don't think like it should be like open to anyone, only if they need it for
Special.
accommodation. Yeah.
That reminds me of something, and you talked about 25 minutes, 25 minutes. I think Tony and I too, just because I know where we live, it's about that getting here. But that is their requirement. So the youth in governance who do get selected so they get a little taste of what that time commitment may be, at least with commuting. And it may help kind of weed out some of the applicants, and for having to offer for inclusivity, maybe that's the time slot at the end of the day that we're all here, that we open up the last time slot for anybody who needed to be virtual.
Yep.
Supervisor Trout.
Yeah, and one more comment.
Oh boy, I see where this is headed.
No, it's not. I mean, I've listened to everybody's comments, which are wonderful. I think from 30,000 feet, it evolves around participation. Okay. What is best for everyone to participate in this process? We have issues with in person, and we have issues with online. The issues with online is I want to get to meet the people, but some can't participate because they may not get here due to weather. So I'm gonna like flip flop. I because of participation. Well, I'm sorry, but I mean I'm hearing again and again, participation is the key, right? I mean we're finding good reasons to say we need to do it in with the web. Okay, and you're about to come back to me and say no, but but I am, because there's many issues that are created. Okay, and as I think about it, this is not going to be the first time that youth will have a one-on-one interview. They may apply for a job when they're 16, 14, 15, and 16. So I am gonna lean back to saying, let's do it on the web, because of participation would be easier for all. As much as I wanna have it face to face, because That's the way I do business. That's the way I've done business for 35, 40 years. And I'm old school, okay?
You are
That's how I sell
cool.
people, okay? But
Yes, you
I
are.
am willing to compromise for participation purposes.
Well,
This is getting out of
thank you.
control.
It is, but however, let's put it this way, whether we can't control, but if we have to be, inclusive in the process of allowing them an opportunity to be interviewed, so whether there has to be a virtual one, there easily could be pay attention to communication in case if there's inclement weather, this may, instead of in person, go to virtual. So we still have that control, so to be able to offer. I'm almost leaning in person now, and this is why. Because we had in person a while back, and then we went virtual. As soon as COVID hit, we went virtual. It would be nice to kind of pilot this again to see what it looks like this year, going back in person. I'm just going to say this, you all hear this now, is, I'm senior in this process, and to be able to offer for this last youth and governance, time that I'm going to be interviewing, because I'm not going to do interviews next year, right, or the year after. So to be able to offer to help curate what that may be better looking like in the future. So if we could bring this back, you have somebody who's seasoned, who's gone through this, to be able to offer a format for the next youth and governance. It's like, hey, we did try to bring it back, whatever reasons, let's keep it to virtual, but or not. So I'm almost leaning now, go back in person, offer it through the communication that we have options for Plan B. Pay attention, interviews may go virtually, and maybe it's a decision by this board. Maybe something has come up, something critical at the county board level, that's time sensitive. We need to be able to offer a Plan B at the time. Okay, I'm leaning, but I'm one person. I don't know how the rest of the people, committee members digest that. I see Gianna's lights on.
I had an idea. So doing the in-person and then having, like it may go virtual, and then to open up again to anyone who, like, due to circumstances, they're not able to attend that meeting, they submit like a short application on why they would need an online application. So just like, I can't get a ride that day. I have a big test, like I don't want to be out there that late. Something like that. And then obviously I don't know who would decide what is acceptable for an online interview and what is not, but that's just an idea I had.
No, I like the thoughts around that. And part of my reason too in person is to go back to when, Supervisor Preisker and Gianna had mentioned about the 25 minutes or whatever. That is their commitment for attendance. And so let them get a feel what it's like. This is the space they are going to be working out of. So they get that first intro into the space, not during orientation, but during the interview process. So it may be a little less intimidating come orientation, and then the nerves, maybe it would have subsided just a tiny bit so they could absorb more info. Supervisor Hoffman, then Preisker.
My 2 cents worth is the participation. Being that it's February, we've talked about weather, we haven't talked about sickness. So that's the time of year where you could be sick, you may not be sick. Going virtual, we're giving ourselves the opportunity to be sick and still be able to be involved with the process along with everyone that's interviewing. So I'm looking at it both weather-wise. For me, example, if it's snowing or icing out, I can't be here anyways. Virtually, I might be able to be still part of the process. Just like some people may not want to drive in the weather. And you kind of said it before, the process that most of these kids are going to want to do is do virtual anyways. So part of me just kind of thinks, yes, the in-person is nice. I think there's time down the road, but maybe the first initial virtual, just because of the time, unless we want to change that. But I just think with everything involved, with weather, sickness, busy time year with school,
like Janice said, I think that's where the virtual comes in play, in my opinion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't really care if we do them in person or virtually, as long as we stick to the time parameters. So it's not open-ended. Um, I do like the idea of giving some flexibility for, an excused in-person interview. Um, I can't remember the reason, but I think there were some people that needed to join virtually for a very good reason last year. And I don't think it was an AP exam. No, I thought they were doing some sort of exam or some sort of program in Madison that was also, I don't remember what it was, but they had a good reason. I don't know what things are going on those two particular nights that we happen to pick at the high school level, but I think there could be very legitimate reasons why they might not make it. I know, sports are typically like Tuesday nights and Friday nights, so Wednesday and Thursday shouldn't necessarily conflict with those. Um, but I could see like if you have a varsity game and it's not something, this is important too, so how do you pick which one you do? Or if you have,
Right.
so I guess I agree, that just like as supervisors attending meetings, we do have options to join virtually sometimes, even though the preferred would be to join county board meetings in person. We do allow some flexibility for people to join virtually, by phone or by video. So, I guess I would agree and say the norm should be like we would do any of these meetings, the norm should be in person. And if there's, some approved reason for joining virtually, that could maybe be an option.
I like that. We actually have an ordinance that states why we should intend, or what would fall under the criteria of us being able to attend virtually. And that would be great to then kind of put that on this application process. We already have a county ordinance. I'm so sorry, support staff, as you're sitting here, as we're just really, beating a dead horse in a bit. But so I think we're at a point where I'm just going to call the question. And so I'm sorry, youth and governance, you always will vote first. So you are going to have to say whether you vote that these meetings in totality are virtual or whether they are in person with a virtual option. So how do you wish to vote either of those ways?
I'm gonna vote in person with the virtual option.
Okay, in person. Thank you. Supervisor Trottier.
I'm gonna vote virtual.
Okay, Supervisor Preisker.
Oh, for in person with the virtual option.
Okay, Supervisor Varan
In-person virtual option.
and Supervisor Hoffman.
Virtual.
Are we tied? Right, I gotta break it.
You're saying you're virtual.
I was gonna not, but now I have to. I am gonna vote in person with a virtual option. So there you go, Maria.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you all for the discussion on that. Was there anything else?
No, I think that was it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, we will see you on the next month's agenda. And with that, we have exhausted. And so I am just gonna adjourn this meeting. We don't need to vote. We've exhausted our agenda. Was there anything else anybody else needed to carry out? All right, that was it. We are adjourned. Thank you.